Ladies and gentlemen, what a privilege it is to share with you today on the divine process that unfolds when we lift our prayers to heaven. Many of us have gone before God with specific requests, hopes for new opportunities, breakthroughs, healing, or success. And in those moments, we expect a swift and visible answer. Yet what we often overlook is that God's answer isn't always immediate, and it isn't always visible in the way we anticipate. God's answers are not just about granting what you prayed for, they are about preparing you to handle what He's about to give. God's process precedes His promises. Prayer is not a transaction where we simply request and God instantly delivers. It's a divine partnership where our faith in Him activates a process of transformation within us. Every prayer has a preparation phase. You see, God is as concerned about the state of the receiver as He is about the gift being received. He doesn't just respond by giving, He responds by making you ready to receive. The journey of preparation is often misunderstood because it doesn't look or feel like what we expect. For many, the preparation phase can feel like delay, silence, or even denial. But I want to challenge that perspective today. God's process is intentional. When you prayed for wisdom, God didn't drop wisdom into your mind overnight. He placed you in situations that required discernment, challenges that demanded you think critically, and experiences that sharpened your understanding. He was answering your prayer, but the form of the answer was preparation. Likewise, when you prayed for strength, God didn't simply fill you with power and resilience. Instead, He allowed circumstances to test you, to stretch you, and to build endurance in your spirit. The strength you now possess was forged through trials you may have once wished to escape. When we ask God for a blessing, He doesn't always hand it over wrapped in comfort and ease. Instead, He prepares us through situations that shape our character and expand our capacity to steward the very thing we prayed for. Consider this: if you give a child something they are not yet mature enough to handle, that gift could harm them or be squandered. The same principle applies to us. God is our Father, and as a loving Father, He is committed to ensuring that we are prepared for what we ask for. He doesn't want His blessings to overwhelm us. He wants them to fulfill their purpose in our lives. That is why His process always comes before His promises. This process, however, is not always comfortable. It often involves testing. Tests are not designed to punish you, but to transform you. They reveal where you stand, what you've learned, and what still needs to be developed. Tests refine us much like fire refines gold. They burn away impurities and bring out the best in us. When you are going through a test, know that God is not absent. He is right there, ensuring that the process produces the strength, maturity, and wisdom you'll need to handle the blessing that's on its way. One of the key elements of God's process is timing. Timing is critical because blessings that arrive prematurely can become burdens. Imagine asking God for a promotion, but your current habits don't align with the demands of leadership. God hears your prayer, but instead of immediately promoting you, He places you in roles and responsibilities that develop your leadership skills. You may feel overlooked, but in reality, God is preparing you for what you asked for. God's timing may not match our expectations, but it is always perfect. While we are focused on the destination, God is working on the vessel. You are the vessel. He is shaping you so that when you arrive at your destination, you are equipped to handle what's waiting for you. This is why it's crucial to trust the process, even when it doesn't make sense. Faithfulness in the small things is another critical aspect of preparation. God observes how we handle the little before He entrusts us with much. If we are careless with small responsibilities, how can we expect Him to open the door to greater opportunities? Every small act of faithfulness, every moment of integrity, and every demonstration of diligence is part of the preparation for the greater things we've prayed for. Ladies and gentlemen, the preparation phase is not wasted time. It is a sacred time. It is in this season that God is shaping your character, strengthening your spirit, and aligning your purpose with His will. When you understand this, you'll realize that what feels like a delay is actually divine alignment. God is not withholding, He is preparing. He is setting you up for success. ensuring that when the blessing arrives, you are not only ready to receive it, but also to sustain it. So, embrace the process. Trust that God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating everything according to His perfect plan. When the time is right, you'll see that every moment of preparation was worth it. God answers prayers not just by giving, but by making you ready to receive. The weight of blessing requires the strength of maturity. Often we focus so much on the blessing itself that we fail to consider its weight. Every blessing carries responsibility, and without proper preparation, what we thought would bring us joy can become overwhelming. This is why God, in His infinite wisdom, ensures that we grow into the capacity for what we ask. He is not just a giver of blessings, He is a cultivator of maturity. Think for a moment about the prayers you've prayed. Perhaps you ask for financial abundance, but abundance without financial discipline can lead to ruin. Or maybe you prayed for a thriving relationship, but without emotional maturity, a relationship meant to be a blessing can lead to strife. God understands this better than we do, which is why His preparation is non-negotiable. He knows that blessings without preparation can turn into burdens. Consider the analogy of a tree bearing fruit. The fruit is the blessing, but the strength of the tree determines whether it can hold the weight of its own harvest. If the branches are weak or the roots shallow, the very blessing of fruitfulness can break the tree. In the same way, God strengthens our spiritual branches and deepens our roots before He allows us to bear the weight of our prayers. He is far more concerned with our ability to sustain the blessing than with our eagerness to receive it. This process of growth and maturity is often gradual. We live in a world that values speed, but God values depth. He will not rush the process because rushing produces shallow results. Think of David, anointed as king in his youth, but not stepping into the throne until years later. Why? Because God was developing the maturity needed to carry the weight of kingship. The throne was a blessing, but it came with responsibility, challenges, and expectations that young David was not yet ready to bear. In your own life, there are blessings you may feel are overdue. You may wonder why the doors haven't opened yet or why the promises seem delayed. But let me assure you, God is not withholding, He is fortifying. Every challenge you face, every lesson you learn, and every test you pass is building the strength you'll need for what's ahead. What you may perceive as delay is actually development. Maturity is not just about age, it's about wisdom, patience, and the ability to handle responsibility. God is not just interested in blessing you, He is interested in blessing others through you. This requires a level of growth where the focus shifts from self to service. For instance, a promotion at work is not just about a higher paycheck, it's about greater leadership, influence, and accountability. Without maturity, the promotion can feel like a curse rather than a gift. God also uses life's experiences to teach us the lessons that prepare us for maturity. Disappointments, setbacks, and even failures are part of His curriculum. He uses these moments to humble us, to refine our character, and to sharpen our perspective. These experiences may be uncomfortable, but they are necessary. They teach us how to navigate the weight of responsibility without losing sight of our purpose. The strength of maturity also involves understanding timing. Receiving something prematurely can be just as detrimental as not receiving it at all. A blessing given too soon can stunt our growth instead of enhancing it. Imagine giving a child the keys to a car before they've learned how to drive. The car is a good thing, but without the maturity to handle it, it becomes dangerous. God ensures that when He delivers His blessings, we are equipped to manage them wisely. So as you wait for what you've prayed for, ask yourself, am I growing into the capacity required to sustain this blessing? Am I allowing God to shape me, prune me, and prepare me for the responsibilities that come with the answer to my prayers? These are the questions that lead to true maturity. Remember, God is not only concerned with what you receive, but also with who you become in the process. He is building you into a vessel that can carry His blessings without being crushed by them. Trust His timing. Trust His process. and trust that He is preparing you for far more than you could imagine. When the blessing comes, you will not only be ready to receive it, you will have the strength to carry it and the maturity to steward it well. Tests are the tools of transformation. Many times when we face trials and challenges, our first reaction is to question why they are happening. We may feel abandoned or think that God is punishing us, but nothing could be further from the truth. Trials and challenges are not punishments, they are instruments God uses to shape us for the next level of our journey. They are not evidence of rejection, but signs of preparation. When you look at the process of refining precious metals, you see the perfect example of what God does in our lives through tests. Gold, for instance, is placed in the fire not to destroy it, but to remove the impurities that compromise its value. The fire is intense, but it is also purposeful. The same principle applies to the trials we face. God allows the heat of life's circumstances to refine us, to purify our character, and to make us more valuable for the purpose He has prepared for us. It's easy to misinterpret these moments of testing as setbacks or obstacles, but they are divine opportunities. Every challenge you face is a classroom where God is teaching you something essential for the next phase of your life. You see, the next level requires a new version of you, a stronger, wiser, and more resilient version. God uses tests to reveal what's already inside of you and to pull out the potential you may not even know exists. Take Joseph, for example. He had dreams of greatness, visions of influence and favor, but the path to those dreams was marked by trials. He was sold into slavery, falsely accused and imprisoned. Yet, every trial served a purpose. In the pit, God was teaching him humility. In Potiphar's house, he was learning stewardship. In the prison, he was developing leadership skills. Each test was a stepping stone, preparing him for the palace. When Joseph finally stood as second in command of Egypt, he was not just a dreamer, he was a man refined by tests and ready to handle the weight of his position. In our own lives, the tests we face are not random. They are strategically designed by God to prepare us for our purpose. The financial struggles you endure may be teaching you how to manage resources wisely. The conflicts in relationships may be shaping your ability to forgive and communicate with grace. The seasons of waiting may be developing your patience and strengthening your faith. These tests are not pointless, they are purposeful. Another important aspect of tests is that they reveal what is within us. Pressure has a way of exposing both our strengths and our weaknesses. In moments of testing, we discover where our faith truly stands. Do we trust God only when things are easy, or can we cling to Him in the storm? Do we walk in integrity when no one is watching, or do we compromise under pressure? These revelations are not meant to condemn us, but to show us where growth is needed. Tests also build resilience. Without challenges, our faith would remain shallow and our character undeveloped. Just as muscles grow stronger through resistance, our spiritual strength is developed through the tests we face. Every time you overcome a trial, you are not just surviving, you are growing. You are becoming stronger, wiser, and more prepared for what's ahead. It's important to remember that God never allows tests without providing the grace to endure them. He is not an indifferent observer, He is an ever-present help in times of trouble. His presence in your trials is a reminder that you are not alone. When the fire feels too hot, remember that He is with you, ensuring that the process refines you but does not consume you. Tests are also temporary. No challenge lasts forever. The Bible reminds us that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. The key is to endure with faith and trust that the test is working for your good. When the test is over, you will find that you have been transformed. You will emerge with a deeper faith, a stronger character, and a readiness to step into the next level of your destiny. So when tests come, don't resist them, embrace them. See them as the tools of transformation that they are. Understand that every challenge is an opportunity for growth, and every trial is a step toward the fulfillment of God's purpose for your life. Trust the process, and know that God is using every test to shape you for what He has in store. The purpose prepares you for provision. One of the greatest truths about God is that He does not waste anything. Every blessing, every opportunity, and every provision He gives is aligned with His divine purpose for your life. But when your purpose is unclear, it can feel like your preparation is delayed, your prayers are unanswered, and your progress is stalled. This is because God's provisions are tied directly to the assignment He has for you. Without clarity of purpose, the resources you're asking for may not be the resources you actually need. God is intentional about equipping you for what He has called you to do, not just for what you desire. Purpose is the guiding framework that dictates what is necessary for your journey. Think about this: a builder doesn't gather materials randomly, they select only what is needed for the specific structure they are building. In the same way, God provides according to the blueprint of your purpose. If the purpose isn't clear, the provisions may seem delayed, not because God is withholding, but because He is waiting for you to align with the assignment. Consider the life of Moses. When God called him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses didn't feel equipped for the task. He questioned his abilities and doubted whether he was the right person for the job. But God's provision was already in place. The staff in Moses' hand became a symbol of authority and a tool for miracles. God provided Aaron as a spokesperson, the Red Sea as a path of escape, and manna as sustenance in the wilderness. Every provision Moses needed was tied to his purpose of delivering God's people. The provision was not random, it was intentional and aligned with the mission. In our own lives, we sometimes focus so much on provision that we neglect to seek clarity of purpose. We ask God for blessings, resources, or opportunities without fully understanding what they are meant to accomplish. This can lead to frustration because provision without purpose is like having a tool without knowing how to use it. God wants you to be not just a recipient of His blessings, but a steward of them. And stewardship requires purpose. When you understand your purpose, preparation becomes meaningful. You begin to see the connections between where you are and where God is taking you. The waiting season no longer feels like a delay, but a period of alignment. You realize that every skill you're learning, every relationship you're building, and every challenge you're overcoming is preparing you for the provision that's coming. The purpose also brings focus. Without it, you may find yourself chasing things that look good but aren't meant for you. Purpose allows you to discern which opportunities are divine appointments and which are distractions. It keeps you anchored in God's plan and prevents you from being swayed by temporary desires. When your focus is aligned with God's purpose, His provisions flow naturally because they are part of the plan He has already ordained. God's provisions are always sufficient, but they are also strategic. He gives you exactly what you need to fulfill your assignment, nothing more and nothing less. This principle is evident in the story of the Israelites in the wilderness. God provided manna daily, not in excess, but in just the right amount to meet their needs. Why? Because the provision was tied to their purpose of journeying to the promised land. Had they hoarded the manna, it would have spoiled, a clear indication that God's provision is designed for movement and progress, not stagnation. When purpose is unclear, it's easy to become discouraged during the preparation phase. You may feel like your efforts are in vain or that God has forgotten you. But the truth is, God is never late. He is meticulously orchestrating everything to align with His purpose for your life. Sometimes He withholds provision to protect you from misusing it or to redirect you toward the path He has set. Other times He allows you to experience lack to cultivate a deeper trust in Him as your ultimate provider. Purpose not only prepares you for provision, but also changes your perspective on it. You begin to see God's blessings not just as gifts, but as tools for fulfilling His will. You stop asking, why haven't I received this yet? And start asking, how can I prepare myself for what God is doing? This shift in mindset transforms waiting into worship and preparation into progress. Ladies and gentlemen, when you seek God's purpose for your life, you align yourself with His provision. The delays begin to make sense, the preparation starts to feel purposeful, and the waiting season becomes a time of growth rather than frustration. God's provisions are always on time and always in alignment with His purpose. When you embrace that truth, you'll find that He is not only preparing you for the blessing, but preparing the blessing for you. Faithfulness in small things unlocks greater things. It is one of the unshakable principles of God's kingdom that the small things in life serve as tests of character and indicators of readiness for greater responsibilities. God is not only interested in what you aspire to achieve, He is deeply concerned with how you steward what you currently have. How you handle the little determines whether He can trust you with the much. Many of us have big dreams and lofty prayers. We ask God for promotions, influence, abundance, or opportunities to make a greater impact. But often we overlook the importance of the small daily responsibilities that are already within our reach. These seemingly insignificant tasks are not irrelevant, they are the proving ground for our faithfulness, discipline, and commitment. Consider the words of Jesus, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. This principle is not just about actions, it's about the heart behind those actions. Faithfulness in small things is about consistency, integrity, and a willingness to honor God in the hidden moments when no one is watching. It's about doing your best with what you have, even when it feels mundane or unappreciated. Think of David, who was anointed to be king while still tending sheep. At first glance, his role as a shepherd seemed insignificant, especially in light of the royal destiny that awaited him. But David's faithfulness in protecting and caring for his father's sheep prepared him for the greater responsibility of leading a nation. The same hands that defended sheep from lions and bears would one day defend Israel from its enemies. God used the small to prepare David for the great. In your own life, the little things may not seem glamorous or important, but they are part of God's process. How you handle the resources, relationships, and responsibilities you currently have reveals your readiness for more. Are you diligent with your work even when it feels routine? Are you faithful in your relationships even when they require patience and forgiveness? Are you managing your time, talents, and finances in a way that honors God? These are the questions that determine whether you're prepared for the much you've been praying for. Faithfulness in small things also teaches us humility. It reminds us that no task is too small or beneath us when it is done for the glory of God. Sometimes we become so focused on what we want next that we neglect what's right in front of us. But God sees your heart. He values the effort you put into the small, unseen tasks because they reflect your character and commitment. Another aspect of this principle is the importance of perseverance. Faithfulness requires consistency over time. It's not about being excellent once, it's about being excellent repeatedly, even when there's no immediate reward. This kind of faithfulness builds endurance and cultivates trustworthiness. When God sees that you can be trusted with small things over time, He knows you'll be able to handle the weight of greater responsibilities. Think about the parable of the talents. The master entrusted his servants with different amounts according to their ability, and then observed how they managed what they were given. The ones who were faithful with their talents were rewarded with more, while the one who buried his talent out of fear lost even what he had. This parable illustrates that God is looking for people who multiply and maximize what they've been given, no matter how small it seems. Faithfulness in small things also aligns you with God's timing. Sometimes we're so eager to move on to the next season that we fail to fully embrace the current one. But God's timing is perfect and His process cannot be rushed. The small things you're entrusted with today are preparing you for the greater things He has planned. Skipping steps or neglecting the small will only delay your progress. Moreover, faithfulness in small things builds trust not only with God but also with people. When others see your consistency, integrity, and dedication in the little things, they are more likely to trust you with bigger opportunities. Faithfulness opens doors that ambition alone cannot. So how are you handling the little in your life right now? Are you maximizing your current resources, giving your best in your current role, and honoring God in the details? Remember, nothing escapes His notice. God observes your heart, your attitude, and your actions. He sees the quiet sacrifices, the diligent work, and the moments when you choose to do the right thing, even when no one is watching. Faithfulness in small things is not just preparation for greater things, it's also a reflection of your faith in God. It shows that you trust His process, His timing, and His ability to elevate you when the time is right. The small things are not insignificant, they are the foundation for the much that is to come. When you are faithful with the little, you position yourself to receive all that God has in store for you. Timing is the language of heaven. In the grand design of God's plan, time is never wasted and delays are never without purpose. What often feels like a pause in your journey is in fact God aligning circumstances, people, and opportunities to match His divine timing. His not yet is not a no, it is His way of saying, trust me, I am preparing something better than you can imagine. In our humanity, we often struggle with the concept of divine timing. We live in a culture that celebrates immediacy, where waiting is seen as a weakness and patience as an inconvenience. But God operates on a higher plane, where His timing is always perfect, even when it doesn't align with our expectations. What seems slow to us is strategic to Him. Consider the story of Abraham and Sarah. God promised them a child, a blessing that would mark the beginning of a great nation. Yet the fulfillment of that promise did not come immediately. Years passed and still there was no sign of a child. To Abraham and Sarah, it may have seemed like a delay, but to God it was preparation. In the waiting, their faith was tested and strengthened. By the time Isaac was born, they had learned to trust not just the promise but the promiser. The same principle applies to us. What we perceive as a delay often carries a deeper purpose. It may be that God is using the waiting season to grow your character, sharpen your skills, or deepen your faith. Or perhaps He is arranging circumstances and preparing people who will play a role in the fulfillment of His plan for your life. What feels like a pause is God's way of orchestrating every detail with precision and care. Timing also teaches us dependence. When answers don't come as quickly as we'd like, we are reminded that we are not in control. This is not a sign of weakness, but an invitation to surrender. God uses the waiting period to draw us closer to Him, to teach us to rely on His wisdom and not our own understanding. The process of waiting shifts our focus from the gift to the giver, from our plans to His purpose. Another truth about divine timing is that it protects us. Sometimes God delays what we desire because we are not ready to handle it. An opportunity given too soon can become a burden rather than a blessing. Imagine receiving a promotion without the skills to manage it, or entering a relationship without the emotional maturity to sustain it. God's not yet is His way of ensuring that when the blessing comes, it won't crush you, it will elevate you. Even nature reflects the principle of timing. A farmer doesn't rush the harvest. He knows that the crops need time to grow, mature, and ripen. Picking the fruit too early would render it useless. Similarly, God waits until the conditions are just right before He brings His plans to fruition in your life. He is not in a hurry because He sees the end from the beginning. One of the most challenging aspects of divine timing is learning to trust when you don't understand. It's easy to believe God is working when things are moving quickly, but faith is truly tested in the seasons of stillness. It's in these moments that we must cling to His promises, knowing that His timing is not just good, it's perfect. He is never late and He is never early. He moves precisely when the time is right. Think of the story of Lazarus. When Jesus heard that Lazarus was sick, He didn't rush to heal him. Instead, He delayed his arrival and Lazarus died. To those around him, it must have seemed like he was too late. But Jesus had a greater purpose in mind. When He arrived, He performed a miracle that not only restored Lazarus, but also revealed His power over death. What seemed like a delay was actually a setup for something far greater than anyone could have imagined. In your own life, the waiting season may feel long and uncertain, but remember that God is working behind the scenes. He sees what you cannot see and knows what you do not know. His timing is not governed by your impatience, but by His purpose. Trust that He is not withholding anything good from you. He is simply ensuring that when the time comes, it will be perfect. So when it feels like your prayers are unanswered and your dreams are on hold, take heart. God's not yet is not a denial, it's a preparation. He is aligning heaven and earth to bring His promises to pass in your life. Trust the process, embrace the waiting, and know that His timing is always worth the wait. When the promise comes to fruition, you will see that it was never late, it was perfectly on time. As I bring this message to a close, I want to remind you that God's ways are not like ours, and His thoughts are higher than ours. He is the master craftsman, carefully orchestrating every detail of your life, aligning your prayers with His purpose, and preparing you for the weight of the blessings you've asked for. The process may be uncomfortable, the waiting may feel endless, and the tests may seem overwhelming, but don't let temporary struggles blind you to eternal truths. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are being prepared. God is not simply interested in giving you what you desire. He is committed to making you into someone who can carry it, sustain it, and multiply it for His glory. Every delay is divine, every challenge is purposeful, and every moment is part of a bigger picture, a picture painted by the hand of a loving Creator who has plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope and a future. Let this truth settle deep in your spirit. God's preparation is never wasted, and His timing is never late. The small things matter, the trials refine, and the waiting aligns. Trust Him, for He is not just preparing you for the blessing, He is preparing the blessing for you. And when the promise comes to pass, you will stand as a living testimony of His faithfulness, His wisdom, and His unmatched ability to turn every season, whether painful or joyous, into a masterpiece of His purpose. So rise up with faith. Embrace the process with courage. Walk through every season with the confidence that the God who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it. You are being prepared for everything you prayed for, and when it manifests, it will exceed anything you could have imagined. To Him be all the glory, now and forever. Amen.